Alright. I'm Kurt Polish with Madison ModPo Group, and with me are Scott, Roger, and Jim, and today we're going to talk about Hart Crane's poem Chaplinesque, and Scott's going to lead us off.
Well, let me start with Hart Crane. How I discovered Hart Crane. When I was in high school, a freshman in high school, I looked up in the card catalog because I knew at that point that I was gay. So I looked up in the card catalog homosexual, and then there was a subdivision called homosexual poets. And then I got permission to get the Walt Whitman Leaves of Grass from the back shelves because you had to have permission from either your parents or your English teacher to take a look at the Whitman book. So I got that. I think I might have forged my parents' name on that. Anyway, and then after Whitman came Hart Crane. And interestingly enough, I was reading a little essay by Harold Bloom, who apparently had his own annotated copy of Hart Crane when he was 12, but that's Harold Bloom. So he says that Whitman was an enormous influence on Hart Crane's poetry, as was Rimbaud and T.S. Eliot and Blake. Those were his primary influences. He died when he was 31 or 32. He committed suicide, jumped over the back of a ship while it was in the Gulf of Mexico. He had a very unpleasant family background. His mother was horribly overbearing and controlling, and his father was abusive physically and mentally, and Crane kept going to New York and trying to be a writer, but he couldn't sell anything, so then he'd go back to Ohio when he was broke and get a little bit of money, then he'd go back to New York. He was writing copy for advertising at one point and practically panhandling in New York. He was so poor, but meanwhile he was writing these great poems. So anyway, for me it's the overarching theme of the poem is about compassion.
Want to read it?
I'll read it. Put my glasses. We make our meek adjustments, contented with such random consolations as the wind deposits in slithered and too ample pockets. For we can still love the world who find a famished kitten on the step and know recesses for it from the fury of the street or warm, torn elbow coverts. We will sidestep to the final smirk, daily the doom of that inevitable thumb that shortly chafes its puckered index toward us, facing the dull squint with what innocence and what surprise. And yet these fine collapses are not lies, more than the pirouettes of any pliant cane. Our obsequies are, in a way, no enterprise. We can evade you and all else but the heart. What blame to us if the heart live on? The game enforces smirks, but we have seen the moan in lonely alleys make a grail of laughter of an empty ash can, and through all sound of gaiety and quest have heard a kitten in the wilderness. It's a great poem.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yes, it really is. So,
Can we go through it?
yes.
Yeah. What do you make of the title?
Well, the title, the first thing I thought about was humoresque, which is a sort of a musical term of a little piece of fluff music that has an underlying pathos to it,
Mm-hmm.
which was Charlie Chaplin. I mean, he was funny, and yet there was always an element of great sadness in The Little Tramp.
That's right.
So, anyway, that was the musical connection, I think.
Yeah.
I love slithered, and I had to think about this for a while, slithered pockets.
Can we go back to contented with such random
Oh, all right.
isolations?
Yes.
We make our meek adjustments. Of course, we don't know at this point what we're adjusting to, right? We make our meek adjustments.
Well, that's to life.
Life,
Constantly
the
adjusting to life.
One, yeah.
tribulations of life.
Yes.
Yeah,
As opposed to some instrument or something.
right,
Yeah.
right.
We make our meek adjustments, contented with such random consolations
Yes.
as the wind deposits. So in other words, we rely on whatever chance throws our way.
We're weathered by our lives, and we live within that weathering with a certain connection to compassion. And the thing I love about this is that it refers to his wardrobe over and over.
Oh, yes, yes,
Yeah.
the slithered pockets.
Slithered
That's
pockets,
great.
torn elbow coverts,
Mhm,
yeah.
Right.
But-
And that's a big part of it's ill-fitting.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but ample pockets, does that mean your pockets are so empty?
Yes.
They're ample, as opposed to some rich person who has so much money, they have big pockets. I have assumed it was what I said first.
No, it's the
Yeah.
pockets that Chaplin had on
Right,
his
yeah,
wardrobe.
totally empty,
Yeah,
with holes in them.
yeah.
And then, but what is a slithered pocket?
It's a smooth, just big, capacious,
Mhm.
smooth space. Bring it in. Let the winds bring it in.
Yeah.
Isn't that?
That's what, yeah, but I had to really think about slithered for a while, because it
Okay.
was such an odd choice, but.
Well, I think it's not the way I looked at it, and what do I know? But it's not ironed and fine and like a wardrobe.
Probably a second-hand,
secondhand,
Yes.
store.
oversized
There you go.
thing. Yeah.
Loose and
Yeah.
smooth and
It's slithered, I mean, it implies a snake, right? Something snakes into your, so that was the part that throws me,
no. Well, put the picture. I'm gonna push for this. Put the picture of him in your mind, and he's got this oversized coat with big pockets.
And he's walking like
And walking
this.
around
like he
and therefore-
waddles, I can
There's a
see
Yeah,
why.
and they do. It kind of slithers.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's a
I can
point
see
where
that.
it even
Yeah.
mentions a cane.
A cheap fabric,
Yeah,
way
and
would
he-
make it.
He does that walk that's very pronounced,
That's
back
right.
and forth, and
That's
in a way,
right.
that's exactly what happens when the
Exactly.
someone slithers.
Later
There
it
you
says,
go. There
more
you go.
than the pirouettes of any pliant cane.
Mm.
And that's just, he has that little cane and
That's
he's
right.
always, sort of pirouetting around it.
Yeah.
Just a call out to how the poem is structured. Just noticing the music of the poem. We have the alliteration of make and meek. Content, on the second line, contented and consolations. And pockets, there's a K sound that kind of hooks up then with the contented and consolation. Just throw that in to think of the artistry.
Well, also daily the doom.
Oh yeah, later on.
Chafes its puckered index. I
Yeah.
love that.
I also think in terms of the form itself, if you just look at the words as blocks,
Mm-hmm.
that they're sort of the way Chaplin walked, which was like this.
Yeah.
So there's a symmetry
So
between
there's-
the verses
Well,
or something.
it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the way he
Yeah.
walked, in that kind of block way. I don't know, maybe I'm
Oh, no.
stretching it, but.
No, I think you nailed it.
Well, the big thing that Al always talks about, form and function
Hmm.
in modern poetry, you know,
Right.
how important both are.
Sure.
For we can still love the world. Again, we, assuming all of us, right,
Sure.
love the world.
What do you make of smirk?
Could find a famished kitten on the step, and no recesses for it from the fury of the street. So find a kitten on the step, and you know how to protect it. I think that's what it's saying on the
I
step.
think you take it in.
Sure.
You acknowledge that it needs protection.
Hmm. In the wilderness.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's what Chaplin was always doing.
The fury of the street.
In all of his movies, there was always a kitten character.
Yes.
Be it the Little Lost. What was that? The famous one, not Modern Times, but before that,
Yeah.
The blind woman.
the blind woman,
Yeah.
and the little boy. These are all.
There was this, I found this in one of those little libraries and I grabbed it. And so it's the Yale, let's see, Modern Poet's Introduction to Poetry. And there's a footnote to this particular poem. And it says Crane really liked Chaplin in The Kid in 1921. Chaplin, a dramatic genius that truly approaches the fabulous sort. Then in a letter dated October 17th, 1921, he wrote, "As you did not get my idiom in Chaplinesque, I feel rather like doing my best to explain myself. I am moved to put Chaplin with the poets of today, hence the we. In other words, he especially in The Kid made me feel myself as a poet, as being in the same boat with him. Poetry, the human feelings, the kitten, is so crowded out of the humdrum, rushing, mechanical scramble of today that the man who would preserve them must duck and camouflage for dear life to keep them or keep himself from annihilation. I have since learned that I am by no means alone in seeing these things, in the buffooneries of the tragedian Chaplin, and in the poem I have tried to express these social sympathies in words corresponding somewhat to the antics of the actor."
Perfect.
Very good.
So, his we is what? We the poets.
We humanity.
But I like the broader reading of we humanity.
Well, I think that's what it is. I don't think he's excluded to poets.
I was just going in.
Even if that's what he thought,
I
his
think
ego would be
we're at
getting the
liberty
best
to
of it.
offer a better.
What?
We are at liberty to read it the way.
No, you have to read it one way, my way.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you say we make our meek adjustments, it means everybody
That's right.
makes their meek
It's what it is to be human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but if kitten means poetry in his mind, and I don't think we have to limit ourselves to what Hart Scott Crane wrote in this particular letter, but so he can find a poem on the step and no recesses for it from the fury of the street. Scott, where are we?
Oh, I don't know. We're probably wrapping.
Third paragraph.
Well, yeah. Well, I think we pretty much covered it. The only thing that I wanted to just add was, I think my favorite line is "a grail of laughter of an empty ash can." It's just quite wonderful.
What do you think that means?
Well, for me, it's the image of Chaplin seen as an empty ash can by the public. I mean, he's down and out, a piece of refuse, and yet his artistry transcends that to being one of the great artists of his day through laughter and turning something, an image of this little waif of a man into something holy. Does that make any sense?
It sure does.
It does brilliantly.
Yeah, I like that image of the moon in lonely alleys.
Yeah, that's good too.
Yeah, it's sort of like someone is finding the beauty even in these bleak urban settings.
Mhm.
You can still see the moon.
Mm-hmm.
I did have, the question of the thumb. Where was the thumb issue here?
Didn't Chaplin have something
Enlarged
on his
thumb?
finger and on his thumb, like gloves that went up halfway?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, he did.
And I think and there's an exposed thumb, don't you
Yeah.
think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which also suggests poverty,
Yes.
because these gloves are ill-fitting.
Half-assed, yeah.
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 The daily doom of that inevitable thumb that slowly chafes its puckered index toward us, facing the dull squint with what innocence and what surprise. So,
I thought that the image came to my mind, and something that he does a lot in his films is he's always hitchhiking. So it's
Oh, that's
it's
great.
this gesture,
Yeah.
and the index finger is clenched this way, which is a chafing thing, and the thumb is out to hitch a ride, to seek help, to get on his way. That was.
by puckered index, you mean that the fingers curled in on
Yeah,
itself?
so
Yeah.
you do this.
Yeah,
That was one option.
I liked it. I don't know what else it could be. And then facing the dull squint with what innocence? So it implies somebody is peering at us or
The
at
dull-
Chaplin
Yeah.
with a dull squint.
Well, the bad guys in all of Chaplin's movies, I'm thinking of Ben Turpin. Do you remember Ben Turpin?
Yes.
Who always was squinting at whatever
Yeah,
the
it was a
shenanigans
little eyes
was,
going.
was a superior squint
Yeah.
at
And
And it's in the same vein as the smirk.
Smirk.
The smirk,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was what came to my
That's
mind.
good.
Mm-hmm.
What are fine collapses? And yet these fine collapses are not lies more than the pirouettes of any pliant cane. I get pirouettes of any pliant cane. I think of Chaplin doing his, slapstick stuff there. But the fine collapses are not lies.
Well, the collapses are related to making adjustments, sidestepping, pirouetting, and whatever. And they could appear like you're giving up.
But you're getting by.
That's right. Yeah.
You're
That's a great
making-
one.
Yeah.
Getting by
Yeah.
instead of giving up. There you
Yeah.
go. I like that.
And then our obsequies are in a way, no enterprise. We can evade you and all else but the heart. What blame to us if the heart live on?
Mm-hmm. Back to Scott's main point.
Which is
Compassion.
So our pleadings or obsequies are being on bended knee, begging in some way is in the way no enterprise.
Well, also our obsequies maybe means our self-pity is not productive. Does that make sense?
Mm.
It's
I mean,
better than
obsequies-
anything I've come up with. Well, that says we can evade you, and I assume that means the bad guy.
The smirking crowd, the people that look at life and
Yeah, Ben Turpin's of the world.
and ignore compassion.
But we can evade you and all else but the heart.
Mhm.
Again,
There
the
you
heart
go.
plays such a central role here.
Yep.
What to blame us if the Hart live on.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, you can't blame us if we still maintain compassion.
That's right.
But also Chaplin wins out in the end. You have this tremendous identity with the portrait as he sort of goes off and, you know, sort of in this funny little dance off into the distance.
So,
And then movies coming along, you know,
Yeah, and most
as a
of
way of entertaining, and
most of the
bringing people
movies are
together.
very grand. They're either cowboy
Yeah.
movies or they're, you know, Colosseums and all these grand movies with casts of thousands. And then you have Chaplin, who, this one single person who, through his magic appeal, by the way, becomes the richest man
Yeah,
in the
that's the
world
other
at one
thing.
point.
There was an enterprise there.
Yeah.